Well, hello everybody. Time for another devotional. I'd like to take you to Isaiah chapter 35 in verse 6. There, Isaiah writes and he says, "And water will gush forth, and there will be streams in the desert." And it's a picture. Isaiah is talking about this coming age that's still future for us. He's talking about this kingdom that God's going to set up, a millennial kingdom. And then when God sets that kingdom up, then the deserts are going to bloom and the water is going to fill the desert areas and the earth is going to be beautifully remade. That's the future context of this passage. But the more immediate thought that I gather from this is this beautiful thing that God does when we go through our own times of struggle and our own desert experiences. That God says, I am going to bring forth these beautiful streams in the desert. I don't know if you remember, many years ago, there was a woman by the name of Letty Cowman, and she wrote a devotional called Streams in the Desert. And she took the title of that from this passage. It was in 1925, 99 years ago, that she wrote this devotional. And the story of her life is pretty amazing. She and her husband were missionaries. They started this missionary agency there in Japan. And they spent a number of years there as sharing the gospel overseas until her husband became ill. And then they had to come back to the United States. And for 6 years, she ministered to her husband, who was bedridden, and she would share the words of the Lord. She would share different things that God would give to her. And then she began to compile these and made this book, Streams in the Desert. Her husband passed away in 1924. And she said, never expecting anything from the work that she had put together. It was all just to bless her husband. And she gave that to a publisher, and they published 3,000 books to start with, and they thought that that would be it. But now it's been going almost 100 years. The book is still being published today. But it was all about how God, in our most desperate situations, in our most desperate times, He comes through for us, and He creates streams in the desert. And her life truly is a witness to that. But this is this passage, and when we go through desert experiences, one of the things that the Lord so desires to do is He wants to bring forth His glory. In Isaiah chapter 35, the chapter begins saying this: "The desert and the parched land will be glad. The wilderness will rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it will burst forth into bloom. It will greatly rejoice and shout for joy. The glory of Lebanon will be given to it, the splendor of Carmel and Sharon. They will see the glory of the Lord, the splendor of our God." When we go through desert times, one of the things that the Lord wants to do is He says, I want to make the desert bloom for you. And I'm going to show forth my glory in your desert experience. And truly, that's what He does for us. You remember the children of Israel going through the Red Sea. I mean, it was their own desert experience. They were surrounded by the enemy. The sea is in front of them. But God opens up the Red Sea and says, march on through. And when they did, God closed that water back in upon the Egyptians. And it says, they will see. God said, you're going to see my glory. And you're going to rejoice. And when we go through these desert times, just like Letty Cowman, we know that the Lord is there with us, and He's going to walk with us, and He is going to make the desert places bloom. Remember the Apostle Paul? He had that thorn in the flesh. And he prayed, Lord, just take this thorn away. And the Lord said, Paul, my grace is sufficient for you. And Paul learned from that whole thing that God is there in the desert and he makes it bloom. And Paul would say, when I'm weak, then I am strong. Because God, you're with me. And these desert places are just going to burst forth with your glory. So if whatever you're going through today, I pray that you'd be blessed, knowing that God is there with you and that he can bring, as Isaiah says, streams in the desert. And he will. He will bring streams in the desert. All things work together for the good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. Lord, I pray your blessing on whoever might be watching this and needing a touch today. Jesus, in your name, amen.